Jung discovered a truth so unsettling that even his colleagues hesitated to name it aloud. The man who needs nothing is the most dangerous man alive. Society thrives on hunger, on craving, on the endless chase for approval, possessions, and illusions of safety. But imagine someone who has stepped outside of this economy of desire, who has burned the bridges that tie him to the approval of others. That man cannot be bought. He cannot be blackmailed. He cannot be seduced by praise or destroyed by rejection. And that is precisely why he terrifies the structures that depend on our compliance. The most dangerous truth is not that people are greedy. It is that a man without needs cannot be controlled. Picture this. A patient once sat before me, trembling, his voice strained as though he carried a secret too dangerous for daylight. He said, "I no longer care whether they love me. I no longer need their respect. I could walk away from everything, and it would not matter." At first, his words sounded like despair. But as I looked closer, I saw a glint of something entirely different: freedom. He was not depressed, he was liberated. His detachment was not the death of the soul, it was the birth of sovereignty. And that is what the world fears most. A human being who has slipped the leash. Society is built upon shadows, the collective shadow of our cravings, the projection of our fears, the unconscious bargain we strike with one another. "I will behave," we say silently, "so long as you reward me with comfort, love, status." But when someone rips up that bargain and refuses to play, the facade begins to crack. That is why prophets are stoned. That is why saints are burned. That is why the man who needs nothing is branded a heretic. He has escaped the game. And by doing so, he exposes its illusion. You have felt this shadow in your own life, though perhaps you did not yet name it. Consider the moments when someone around you, perhaps a friend or a colleague, seemed utterly immune to pressure. When the boss shouted, he did not flinch. When others begged for approval, he remained silent. That man disturbed you. His eyes reflected something ancient, untouchable. It felt as if he were walking through storms while you clutched your fragile umbrella, and somewhere inside, you both feared him and envied him. Jung warned that what we fear is often the mirror of what we secretly long for. His immunity to manipulation awakened your own hunger for freedom. Let us pause here, because the danger of such a man does not lie in violence or rebellion. It lies in his indifference to the masks society wears. When you cannot tempt him with wealth, he destabilizes the economy of greed. When you cannot shame him with rejection, he erodes the tyranny of conformity. When you cannot seduce him with status, he unravels the hierarchy of power. His very existence calls into question the rules by which you have been enslaved. And that, my friend, is why the man who needs nothing stands at the edge of both sainthood and damnation. But do not misunderstand. Such detachment does not arrive through laziness or denial. It is forged in fire. Jung called this the process of individuation, the descent into the shadow basement of the soul, where all your unmet needs, your unspoken fears, and your broken illusions wait like ghosts. You cannot simply declare, "I need nothing," and be free. You must confront the unconscious bargains you have made, the way you sell pieces of yourself for love, the way you bend your spine for approval, the way you cling to comfort as though it were God. Only when you see these shadows for what they are can you release them. And in releasing them, you rise. Think of it like this. A child clings to a blanket, believing it is life itself. To rip it away is cruelty, but to guide the child towards strength is liberation. Society, however, thrives on keeping us as children, forever clutching blankets, status, possessions, attention, distraction. The man who has no blanket terrifies us because he reminds us we could walk barefoot into the storm and survive. I remember another patient, a woman bound by endless craving. She needed her husband's attention, her children's gratitude, her friends' admiration. When she did not receive it, she collapsed into rage or despair. One day, exhausted, she confessed, "If I could learn to need nothing from them, I think I would finally breathe." Her whisper was trembling, as though she feared the thought itself might bring punishment. But she was right. Her suffocation was not from their neglect, it was from her chains of need. And that is the great lie. We think society starves us, when in truth we starve ourselves by believing we must beg for crumbs. You, too, have chains of need wrapped around your ankles. Do not deny it. The need to be admired, the need to be safe, the need to be loved, the need to be seen. A chain feels natural, even noble, but when pulled together, they keep you docile. Jung would say, until you confront these needs in the shadow, you are not living, you are performing. You are enslaved by what you cannot imagine living without. And here comes the storm, the warning signs. For Jung, there were always stages, markers of when the self begins to break under the weight of false needs. Sign 1, you panic when ignored. A silence from others feels like death. Sign 2, your joy rises and falls with the opinions of strangers. Sign 3, you sacrifice truth to maintain belonging. Sign 4, you cannot walk away from toxic bonds, because your need outweighs your pain. Sign 5, when alone, you feel hollow, as though your existence is borrowed from others. Each of these signs is a whisper from the shadow. You are not free. You are still enslaved by hunger. Summary. And when these signs multiply, society celebrates, because it thrives on your dependence. The more you need, the more you consume, the more you crave, the more you obey. But the day you awaken and whisper, "I could need nothing," the chains begin to tremble. That whisper is dangerous, for it opens a door that cannot be shut. The world calls it apathy. They say, "He has given up. E no longer participates." But Jung would insist this is not apathy, it is awakening. When a man needs nothing, he is not a corpse. He is a storm tearing down illusions. He has withdrawn from the counterfeit marketplace of desires and planted himself in the ground of being. He has learned that hunger can be manufactured, that needs can be programmed, that society itself profits by keeping you thirsty. He has broken the spell, and that is precisely why he is condemned. Let us go deeper into the theory. At the heart of Jung's psychology lies the shadow, the dark storehouse of everything you deny, repress, or disown. Most people project their shadow onto others. They say, "He is greedy. She is vain. They are corrupt," while secretly those very qualities gnaw inside themselves. But the man who has embraced his shadow, who has walked into his basement and lit a torch, no longer projects. He sees clearly, and because he no longer projects, he cannot be manipulated by propaganda or seduction. He no longer hates the tyrant because he has already faced the tyrant inside himself. He no longer envies the rich because he has already confronted his craving for wealth. His vision slices through the fog of society like lightning. That clarity is what makes him dangerous. Individuation, the process Jung called the birth of the true self, always carries a cost. To need nothing, you must lose everything you once thought you could not live without. And so society whispers, "Do not go down that road. Stay with us. Keep your comforts." Because the individuated man threatens the collective dream. He does not need the tribe to validate his existence. He does not need the priest to tell him God approves. He does not need the politician to assure him of safety. He has built his temple inside. And so the world's institutions tremble. Imagine again a case study. There was a man Jung once described, a businessman of great means, who after years of striving reached the top of his empire. And then, suddenly, he abandoned it. He sold his holdings, walked away, and lived quietly in the mountains. Society branded him insane. His family whispered about breakdown. But Jung saw something else: individuation. For years, this man had played the game of needing wealth, needing status, needing applause. But once he realized the futility, he could no longer serve as a cog in the machine. His withdrawal was not collapse, it was rebellion. He did not need. Therefore, he could not be used. You must ask yourself now, how much of your life is built on needs that are not truly yours? How many hours of your day are spent feeding an appetite that was planted in you by someone else? Jung once wrote that modern man has lost the ability to listen to his own soul because he is deafened by the demands of society. To be free, you must relearn that language. You must become fluent in silence, capable of hearing what the unconscious has been trying to say while you drowned it in craving. But be warned, the path of needing nothing begins with pain. When you first detach, you will feel naked, stripped of identity. The shadow will rise. Old fears will scream. You will die without approval. You will collapse without comfort. And so begins the dark night of individuation. Stage 1, terror. You believe you have lost everything. Stage 2, defiance. You begin to resist the cravings, though they still burn. Stage 3, surrender. You accept the emptiness and sit within it. Stage 4, clarity. Out of the silence, you begin to see who you really are. Stage 5, liberation. The chains fall, and you discover that you needed nothing all along. These are not abstract stages. They are felt in your bones. To walk them is to descend into hell and return with fire in your eyes. Let me give you a living picture. A young man once sat in my consulting room, broken by the betrayal of his friends. They mocked him, excluded him, and left him with nothing but shame. At first, he collapsed under the weight, desperate to win them back. But slowly, as he worked through his dreams and shadows, he began to see their approval had been his prison. Their laughter had been the leash around his throat. And when at last he no longer needed them, something astonishing happened. He became magnetic. Strangers respected him. Even those who once despised him now sought his company. Why? Because when you need nothing, you emit a power that others cannot comprehend. You become dangerous, not because you harm, but because you reveal. Jung tied this mystery to ancient archetypes. In myth, the figure who needs nothing is the trickster or the prophet. He is ridiculed, cast out, sometimes killed, but his voice endures. Because it does not echo society's hunger, it echoes truth. Consider Christ in the desert, offered bread, power, and worship. He refused. He needed nothing, and thus he could not be tempted. That refusal shook empires. Or consider the Buddha, sitting beneath the Bodhi tree. Indifferent to demons and desires, he needed nothing, and thus no illusion could bind him. These archetypes live on not as saints cloaked in distance, but as mirrors. They show you what you could be if you released your needs. But here is the paradox. The moment you stop needing, you receive. The businessman who walked away from wealth found peace richer than gold. The betrayed man who stopped begging for friends discovered authentic connection. The woman who stopped clawing for love found love freely offered. Society insists that to survive, you must need. Jung insisted that to truly live, you must release. The moment you release, what is real will remain, and what was false will burn away. Still, do not mistake this liberation for selfishness. The man who needs nothing is not a predator. He does not exploit. He does not manipulate. He simply cannot be enslaved. And his freedom becomes a threat to every system that profits from bondage. This is why Jung warned, The individuated person must bear a burden. His freedom will not be celebrated. It will be feared. And he must decide whether to endure that loneliness. To walk as a stranger among the chained. Ask yourself, are you ready to bear that burden? Could you survive being misunderstood, mocked, perhaps abandoned? Could you walk into the desert and sit in silence with no assurance that anything will return? Most cannot. That is why society remains safe. But for the few who dare, a different world emerges. A world not of control, but of clarity. Do you see now why the man who needs nothing is called dangerous? He threatens not through violence, but through vision. He shows that the emperor has no clothes. He proves that your chains are imaginary. He embodies a life beyond the marketplace of needs. And when one man demonstrates that possibility, others begin to stir. That ripple is what the collective fears most. For if too many awaken, the old order collapses. The danger is not in his fists, but in his freedom. For when a man no longer dances to the tune of desire, he becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability shakes the order of the collective. Jung often warned that societies are built upon shared illusions, currencies of value, honor, reputation, and shame. These illusions function only so long as everyone believes in them. But introduce into the crowd a single man who believes in none of it. And suddenly the spell wavers. The people begin to ask questions they should not. Why do I kneel? Why do I obey? Why do I beg? This contagion is far more dangerous than rebellion. Rebellion can be crushed with soldiers. But freedom, true freedom, cannot be killed once it has been seen. We must now speak directly of the warning signs. For Jung would have us not only admire the liberated, but also recognize the chains within ourselves. To ignore them is to remain blind. To see them is the first step to dissolving them. Sign 1. You confuse desire with identity. You say, I am what I want. And if your desires are mocked or denied, you feel as though your very self has been annihilated. This is slavery, for your existence is chained to a mirage. Sign 2. You equate silence with death. If no one praises you, if no one calls your name, you spiral into panic. This reveals the shadow of dependency, the hidden child still begging for a parent's gaze. Sign 3. You bargain your truth for belonging. You silence the voice within because you fear exile. This is one of the most subtle chains, because it disguises itself as virtue. You say, I am a good citizen, a loyal friend, a faithful follower. But beneath it lies fear. I cannot survive without the tribe. End of sign 4. You cannot endure emptiness. In solitude, you immediately reach for distraction, scrolling, drinking, noise, company, anything but silence. Because in silence, your shadow approaches. You will do anything not to hear its footsteps. Sign 5. You live as an actor in a play you did not write. You perform the role of the good worker, the loving spouse, the respectable adult, not because it is who you are, but because you fear the consequences of refusal. Sign 6. You seek vengeance against those who mirror your hunger. You resent the wealthy because they reveal your craving for wealth. You despise the admired because they expose your thirst for admiration. Projection blinds you, and in your hatred, you remain enslaved. These signs are not mere psychological curiosities. They are alarms. They are red flares shot into the night sky of your soul. If you see them in yourself, do not dismiss them, for every sign ignored grows into a noose. Jung would insist, your task is to notice, to admit, to bring these signs into consciousness. Only then can they be dissolved. So what then is the way out? Jung never left us without a path, though he warned it was narrow, steep, and lined with shadows. Let us call this path Jung's protocol, the steps by which the man who is enslaved by need may become the man who needs nothing. Step 1. Descend into your shadow. Stop running from the basement of your soul. The fears, cravings, and humiliations you have buried must be faced. Sit in silence. Write your dreams. Confess your envy. Admit your hunger. This is brutal, but it is the first incision that drains the poison. Step 2. Break the projection. Whenever you catch yourself hating or resenting, ask, what in me is being reflected here? The tyrant outside mirrors the tyrant within. The seducer outside mirrors the craving within. When you reclaim these projections, you take back your power. Step 3. Practice deliberate solitude. Not the loneliness of abandonment, but chosen solitude. Sit in silence until the panic rises. Let the shadow approach. Feel its weight. And then, do not run. In time, you will discover you are not annihilated. You survive. And in surviving, you weaken the chains of need. Step 4. Speak your unbending truth. Even once, even trembling, break the bargain of silence. Tell a truth you have feared to tell, not for applause, but for liberation. Each act of truth is a blade cutting one link of the chain. Step 5. Withdraw your bargain with society. Consciously say, I no longer sell my soul for your crumbs. This does not mean abandonment of community, but abandonment of slavery. You give freely, not because you must, but because you choose. Step 6. Re-anchor in the self. Beyond the mask, beyond the persona, beyond the shadow, there is the self. What Jung called the God image within. When you feel it, you realize you are not empty. You are whole. This self needs nothing because it already contains everything. These steps are not linear. They spiral. You will descend and ascend, fall and rise, collapse and burn, again and again. But each cycle breaks another shackle, until one day you wake and realize you could lose wealth, reputation, applause, comfort, and yet remain unshaken. That is the moment you step into danger. That is the moment you become untouchable. Consider again a story. For theory without flesh is dry. A woman once came to Jung shattered by divorce. She said, I cannot live without him. He was my everything. For months she raged, wept, begged the universe to restore what was lost. But slowly, as she worked through the dreams of abandonment and shadows of dependency, she discovered something unthinkable. She could live without him. She could breathe. She could stand. And not merely stand, but walk stronger than before. In that moment, she realized she needed nothing. And the day she saw her ex-husband again, she felt no fear, no rage, no hunger. She was free. He could not touch her, for she had already taken back her soul. Do you understand? To need nothing is not to become empty, it is to become whole. It is not nihilism, it is liberation. And this liberation terrifies society because it spreads like fire. One woman discovers she can live without approval, and her friends begin to question their own chains. One man discovers he can live without wealth, and his colleagues begin to wonder if they too could walk away. The contagion of freedom is unstoppable once seen. This is why prophets are silenced. This is why visionaries are exiled. Their crime is not heresy, it is demonstration. They demonstrate that you could be free. So I ask you now, can you imagine it? Can you imagine waking tomorrow with no need for applause, no fear of rejection, no hunger for approval? Can you imagine looking at the world's temptations and smiling, not because you resist, but because you are already full? That is what it means to need nothing. That is the danger and the glory. But you must decide. For this path is not for those who cling. It is not for those who wish only comfort. It is for those who are willing to be misunderstood, to be feared, to walk alone into the storm. If you are such a one, then the steps lie before you. And if you take them, the world will no longer own you. The transformation is not subtle. It is not a small adjustment of mood or habit. It is a seismic shift in the foundations of the soul. Before liberation, you were a victim, clinging, begging, performing. After liberation, you are an oracle, a storm, a mirror held to the face of the collective. The contrast is violent, like stepping from a dungeon into blinding sunlight. One day you are chasing love that flees like a shadow. The next, you are rooted in a love so deep it requires no witness. One day you are trembling at the thought of exile. The next you walk as though the world itself could be left behind without regret. That is the metamorphosis Jung described. The death of the persona, the birth of the self. Let me give you the image plainly. Imagine a man in chains. He rattles them. He cries out, but he never questions their necessity. Then imagine another man who, instead of pulling against the chains, simply opens his hand and lets go of the craving they bind. The chains fall. He walks away. Nothing external changed. The world did not remove them, but his refusal to need what they promised shattered their grip. That is how the liberation happens. You do not destroy society's illusions by force. You destroy them by refusing to kneel before them. And this liberation spreads. A dangerous man is not dangerous because he attacks, but because he awakens. His freedom ripples outward. His calm exposes your panic. His indifference to status exposes your hunger. His silence reveals your noise. And slowly, others begin to suspect. Maybe they, too, could walk away. One spark ignites another. This is how movements are born, not through speeches, not through armies, but through the raw demonstration of a life beyond need. Jung warned that this transformation often invites persecution. The collective does not reward those who expose its illusions. It punishes them. History is littered with the bones of those who refuse to need. Socrates condemned for questioning. Christ crucified for refusing temptation. Prophets mocked. Missionaries exiled. Their crime was not violence, it was freedom. And freedom looks like madness to those still chained. To stand in your own sovereignty is to stand alone. At least for a time, that loneliness is the crucible in which your soul hardens into steel. Yet in that steel lies compassion. For the man who needs nothing does not sneer at the chained. He understands them. He knows their panic, for he once lived it. He knows their craving, for it once devoured him. And so, his freedom is not arrogance, it is an invitation. His very existence whispers, "You can be free too." That whisper is what makes him most dangerous to society and most healing to the soul. He does not recruit. He does not preach. He simply is. And his being shakes the world. Now I must speak directly to you. You have walked this labyrinth with me. You have felt the tug of your chains, the sting of your shadows. Do not let these words remain theory. The danger lies not in hearing, but in refusing to act. The signs have already been named. The steps have already been shown. The transformation has already been witnessed. Now the choice is yours. Will you remain as you are hungry, anxious, enslaved, or will you step into the fire and emerge needing nothing? If you dare, the outcome will terrify you at first. You will lose. You will lose the false friends who fed on your need. You will lose the hollow comforts that kept you numb. You will lose the roles you played, so convincingly you forgot they were masks. But after the loss comes the birth. You will gain clarity that slices through deception. You will gain strength that no tyrant can touch. You will gain peace that no absence can disturb. You will walk as though the world were glass, and you carried a hammer of truth. You will not smash for pleasure. You will smash because you cannot be fooled. That is the life of the man who needs nothing. That is the gift. And that is the burden. Picture it one final time. Before, you were a beggar at the banquet of society, clawing for scraps of approval. After, you are the feast itself, radiant, overflowing, untouchable. Before, you feared silence as a coffin. After, silence becomes your cathedral. Before, you bent beneath every command. After, you stand, and the commands bounce off your skin like arrows off stone. That is the transformation Jung demanded. From puppet to prophet, from victim to vessel, from chained to dangerous. And now I turn to you with a question that cannot be ignored. Are you willing to become dangerous? Not dangerous with violence, but dangerous with freedom. Not dangerous to others, but dangerous to the illusions that enslave them. Are you willing to be misunderstood, feared, perhaps even hated, for the sake of a freedom that cannot be revoked? This is the invitation. This is the threshold. The door is open. Will you step through? If your answer is yes, if somewhere inside you a fire has sparked, then write it. Declare it. Proclaim it. Write, "I see everything" in the comments, so the world knows the chains are breaking. And if you would walk further with me, if you would step deeper into this dangerous freedom, then subscribe. For this journey does not end here. The shadows are deep, and we have only begun to map them. I will see you again, not in this world alone, but in the next dimension. Until then, remember, the man who needs nothing cannot be broken, and that man could be you.